Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hi, and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy, and we are here to radiate fun with Sandy Jorgensen. I have been so excited about this, you guys. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Sandy and I have known each other for many years, and Sandy is a palmistry person. A palmist? What do you call that?
Well, palm reader.
Palm reader, thank you, palm reader. I know, and the thing is that, we, from popular culture, from movies and TV, we have certain ideas about what palm reading is, what palmistry is, and what it means. But I tell you what, talking to Sandy, I have learned so much, and it is fascinating, and yeah, it is a lot of fun. I think you're really going to enjoy this. Welcome, Sandy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
I'm so happy to have you in here. So, you palm reading. How did you get into that?
Good grief. You know what? As a child, I remember being really little, and I would see things, see dead people, have dreams, but I always got in trouble with it. And so, You know how, or are you creating this? So I was very intuitive, very psychic, but then I found out that palmistry, it was like when I did handwriting analysis, it was something that could kind of sort of be trusted. Do you know what I mean?
It's safe.
It's safer, yes. But now that, I think I've been doing it for 25 years.
Oh, sure.
And
you're like the person in the Kansas City area.
Because no one wants to learn the craft. It takes, for me personally, it took about 7 years before it started to make sense.
Wow.
And the lines, in fact, I mark my hands, but they tell a language. The hand has, it's our internal, just our heart.
Map.
It's your map, and they can be changed. And like I look at people from a distance. And it was so fun. Well, the first thing that you would learn in China, that they only read the thumb.
Oh, okay.
They don't read, a lot of them, they'll just look at the thumb, they look at the fullness.
Oh, the fleshiness?
Yeah, because that's named Venus.
Right, the Mount of Venus, right?
And so, but I had heard about this thumb that's called the murderous thumb.
What?
Have you heard of that?
No, the murderous thumb.
Well, this part, I don't know if your camera can see that, but the bottom flange of the thumb is your logic. And then the top part is your will. So if that part is really full and bulbous, it would mean, inflated will or strong will. So it got called the murderous thumb because people would act without logic.
Oh my goodness.
But it doesn't always mean that you will be a murderer.
Right. You could act without logic in finances or in politics.
Well, and you kind of want to have stronger will, so then you're not just thinking about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to have that push, but...
Right.
But I saw this man, he was at the grocery store when I was first studying palmistry, and he had a really bulbous tip, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to test it. And so I went up to him, and I accidentally bumped him when I was getting my chicken, and he got upset at me, and he goes, and he kind of nudged me because he was reacting.
Sure.
But would he really murder someone? Probably not. Probably not. At least I hope not.
We hope not. But, so I can imagine, when you know the things that you know, that could be interesting. Looking at people's nails and the shape of their hands and...
Well, like the nails, yes. I mean... As long as I've been doing it, it seems like the more I learn, the less I know. It's more doors will open, and the nails. The shape of the fingertips will tell a lot about a personality. The shape of the hand,
Of course, now if you're listening on iTunes or Google Play, you can't see me looking at my hands. But now I'm just like, now I'm really self-conscious about my hands, you know?
No, they're very delicate. Most people will have my kind of tips. They're rounded on the tips, and like yours, they're conic. But my tips are fatter than yours.
Right.
And so the more narrow your tips are, that means you can get to the point of things quick.
Oh, wow.
Or it's a sign of the psychic hand.
Right.
It doesn't mean that, I'm very psychic also, but well, how can I even explain it? Like when you want to get to the point, and if the point is, the little hole is narrow and your little fingertips are really pointy, you're going to get in there faster than me. So you might be kind of more allergic to drama than I am. You would go, I'm out of here. I'm gone.
Oh, I'm totally that way.
See, or you would retreat, where I would just, mine are wider. And so I would say, oh, okay,
Right. There's two sides to everything.
Yes, I would stay longer or listen to the stories longer, but you're out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I cannot tolerate drama.
Yeah.
It's like allergic. Yeah, it's 7 years to study all of this, Sandy.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, I'm still studying, but it took 7 years before it started to make sense.
Oh my gosh. Where do you study these things?
I mean, you have to just start reading hands. But, like the lines say, I have so many books. I don't know where to start, so I go all over the place. But if you study with just one book, you're going to get in trouble. At least I did.
Right.
Because everybody writes in a different way, and you have to kind of analyze how they're writing. But it's pretty simple in a way, but yet it's complicated.
Well, it's like tarot can be very complicated. Astrology.
Yes. But it has like a system. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like the hand, for instance, is named after, like a different element. Like there's the fire hand, the water hand,
really?
the earth hand, and the air. And so an earthy hand, it's thicker, the palm is square, and the fingers are short. And so they're very honest. They like to work outside.
Mm-hmm.
They like to, oftentimes they're business owners who tell a lot of people what to do, like they're the heads of construction.
Sure.
So you can kind of tell, like what kind of profession that they'll lead into easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the water hand, and the water hand is a narrow palm with very long, skinny fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see that with a lot of women and men who are very sensitive. They're the sensitives, but they're tough on the inside.
Interesting.
And they go into like fields of nursing, veterinarians, and not usually doctors. Doctors are more air and earthy. I mean,
talk about the murderer thumb.
We need both.
We do need both. Yeah.
But I mean, it's fascinating, and then you can have a combination because I'm a combination of air and fire. And
okay, show me how that is.
Well, a fire is going to have, it's more like a spatula shaped.
Oh, sure.
And so I have a narrow wrist, and then under my fingers, it's narrow. I mean, wide.
Mm-hmm.
So that means like for instance, if you put a match to the room, it has no control. It will just go everywhere.
Right.
So they tend to be
a little ADD.
Well, they're very creative.
Oh,
they start a lot of projects, and then they have other people finish them. They're like the risk takers, and they're like they take on a new idea or give other people ideas. And so that would be that. And then the air, it has the quality of intelligence. It's
nice.
I mean, just always moving. Air is a tornado. Air is, it's a wind. I don't know how to simplify.
No, absolutely. It could be a gentle breeze, or it can be a hurricane or a tornado, right?
Well, and really what the simplistic way of defining that is air, we get bored.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to do different multiple degrees or different businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always learning.
So what is the shape of an air palm or the quality of an air hand?
They're a little bit, oh my gosh, now they're hard. They're a little bit hard to tell because they look kind of like the earth.
Oh, sure.
Only it's a square palm, but they have like kind of longer fingers than the shorter fingered.
Right. I'm thinking of my kid right now.
Oh yeah, what does she?
She's got the square palm and she's got the kind of pointed fingers.
Okay, so then you should treat her with delicacy, and she needs you to be extremely brutally honest. And maybe not surprise her with things, just...
That is so spot on, Sandy. Absolutely.
I mean, that's how her brain and her heart are connected.
Yes.
And just tell her up front, even if you want her to do something, she can be very intuitive, but she would prefer that maybe you write it down, give her a list.
She loves to know what to expect.
Yes, let her know ahead of time.
And because she likes to be prepared.
Yes.
Right. She hates it when things are chaotic and she doesn't know who's in charge or what the plan is.
Plus, and you're that way too, but with the little pointy fingertips, yes, it sounds kind of mean sometimes to say that they're so sensitive that they'll escape. But on the other hand, they're that's great. That's strong for them because they can become great writers, great artists. Will have a real pointy. And you worked at Hallmark.
Oh, I did work at Hallmark, and my daughter's an artist.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, you do. Yes.
I mean, and that's just from a distance. You could tell by somebody by their knuckles.
Oh wow! So what do you notice about the knuckles?
Well, I look at the fingers. And if mine are pretty straight, and so are yours.
Yeah.
So the straighter the finger, it just means that you are quick and the energy comes in and comes out. And you're more sensitive to the needs of others, very intuitive and very how can I help you? And right away you're going to help that person. Okay. Whereas somebody that has... they're like knots. Very, they're pronounced knots, and they'll say, "Oh, I have arthritis."
Right.
But there are so many healers that say arthritis comes from being maybe too stiff, too rigid.
I've heard that.
And so if I see, the knotted hands, usually it's a sign that they're thinkers. Mm-hmm. Because I see it as like a tube, like a hose of running water. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way I can think of it. And you and I, it's turned on.
Right.
And the hose is clear and fluid. Right. Where people that have big knots, they would think and then they pinch the hose. And then it doesn't, it stops. And so they're philosophers. They're very smart. They're dreamers. But oftentimes I have to help them to take the next step.
Oh, I see.
And that can show up, too, with people who are chronic alcoholics.
Oh, wow.
Yes, because, if you can't go through life or you're having an emotional problem, it is, for some people, much easier just to take the drug or the alcohol. Mm-hmm. And that's how they can, follow through.
Right.
But you can't really look at people and say, I think you're an alcoholic. Just... always go to the positive, and I'll say, I can see that you're like a hard thinker.
Right. Right. And you are a very positive person. You do see the good in people. And you tell the good in people, yes.
There's something about when I give readings. In fact, it was one of the reasons why I didn't think I could read.
Really?
Because when I would see the person... I only see beauty.
Yeah.
And it's something just goes in my body, and I see probably their highest potential. Right. And then later I would see them in public doing kind of not so good things, and I would think,
right,
oh my gosh, I didn't see that at all. But I don't think I'm supposed to see it.
No. Well, and I don't know if people would want to know that.
No. As a healer or a reader, any kind of a reader needs to be an uplifter.
I think so too.
And you just can't. Plus, it's just not natural for me. I see them as
they're positive. They're highest light.
They're beautiful. If you really look at a person and look one-on-one and just look at their face, they're pretty.
Perfect in God's eyes.
You can see, yes, they're beautiful.
Right. Well, I think too that because I'm a very positive reader. I don't want to see people's gloom and doom. No. That doesn't help them.
No.
It helps them when they know what they can work with, what they've got going for them, what they can use to their benefit, to their advantage. And that's how you work too.
Yes.
Right. I think that is a really good tool of palmistry. You can see what a person's maybe personality is like, what their interests, what their talents are.
It's very fascinating. Well, what I do is I ink both hands. I take a print. And I did bring some prints, but we can't really see them. But
no.
So you're...
May I?
Yeah, go ahead. The non-dominant hand, the one that you do not sign your name with, is considered your subconscious, your private side, your soul.
Wow.
I always equate it to, this is the hand. This is what I told God that I would want to do in this life. And then the dominant hand is the personality. And so that's the one that changes. And that's like, okay, this is what I wanted to do, and this is how I'm able to do it. So a lot of times, life, divorce, our personality gets a little bit off.
Right.
And but when I ink the hand back to that, you can really see the lines and how the pains or the wins that people have gone through. It's amazing.
That shapes them.
And you know what I've noticed?
What's that?
We know what we want. Everybody knows what they want. But for them to meet somebody who does not know them, and it's in the hand, and there's even a beautiful quote in the Bible about palmistry.
Really?
Yeah, it says, I don't know the whole thing, but let the marks of him be seen on the hands of man so that they will know their works.
So that's beautiful.
It's better than that, but every time I have a camera in front of me, I lose my words.
Sure.
But it's beautiful. And so when a person can see it in their hands, and all it does is it validates what the soul knows from a very young age.
Right.
And then it gives you permission to follow through.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
It's so pretty. And there is a language to the hand. I mean, like the heart line, there's a line that's under the fingers.
Right.
And we talked about that. Mine is really curved and yours is really straight.
Is that this one?
And no, it's the first one right under the finger.
Okay,
closest to the fingers.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just, I see the lines as smiles. And so the heart line is related to your emotions. And so if it's kind of like a straight, it doesn't mean you're not nice, but it means that you might be more guarded with your emotions.
Right, you may not show it.
Yeah, and maybe you went through, personal struggle, and so you don't really have the need to show it. Or you would like it to keep it personal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And mine is a big old smile, so if I'm hurt, if I'm nervous, you're going to know.
No poker face here.
No, not at all. But I mean, it's fascinating, especially with couples, to see how does the other person engage in life compared to you.
Interesting, yeah.
And then the headline is underneath that first line.
Mm-hmm, right here in the middle?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And mine goes, it has a big arch, and it goes all the way down into the area of the subconscious world, which means, I I'm a dreamer. I'm an artist
Yes, you are.
and a writer. And you know, we get our messages through intuition in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see how yours is. Christy's is straight all the way across. So she's a
Which one is
go-getter.
this one?
This right here.
Oh, that one.
And so she's a go-getter. And the headline, to me, I see it as the sword. It's your mind.
Ah.
And so if that line is pretty straight, you have more of a, like a take charge kind of personality. And mine goes down. So I think with my heart, so I can be a procrastinator, or I have to have a job that if it feels right, if it's going to make someone feel good, I'll do it. And you just go, I got to pay the bills.
I am a Leo.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So, Lily Tomlin had a great quote. She said, if you can't be direct, why be?
that would be you.
That would be me. That would be me.
But we need your types too.
We need all types. We really need all types.
Yes.
But I can see this would be a really good tool in a couple.
Oh, absolutely. And what I've noticed, it's really good for moms, for their kids.
Oh, sure. Get to know how to parent them. We talked about how to parent my, dreamy, want to know the details first kiddo.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I could tell this story, but I had a family that came to see me, and it was the father and his son's friend, and he worked construction. He owned the construction company, the dad.
Oh, wow.
And the dad was so upset because the son didn't want to work construction. But then I looked at their hands, and the son had very long fingers. And it doesn't mean he can't work construction, but he was more musical, and he wanted to get his degree. And so I looked at the friend and I said, he has your exact same hand. So even though he's not your son, you would be better off hiring him to do what you want to do and put your son in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And then and they did it, and they loved it.
That's wonderful.
But I mean, you just can't make a chicken or any kind of an animal be anything but what it is.
Right. So put him in the right role for his talents, for his gifts. Yeah. No, I think that is essential. And in fact, I was just kind of in the back of my mind thinking, that would be a good tool to have in HR.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know of anybody who does that?
Well, in the 1970s is when I was doing handwriting analysis. And a lot of my friends would say, I'd like you to read this person's handwriting.
Sure.
And because you can tell exactly, and they do that. And
they do.
I don't know if they do that anymore, but they did it. It was heavy in the 70s.
Right. Well, Marie Jenkins, who is a handwriting analyst, has been on this podcast before, and she had done some of that for companies.
Yes. And same, I know that palmistry is being used here and there with the police and with
really?
Yes, and with the FBI, because you can get information about a profile of that person, and then they would know where to go, what kind of habits they liked, and
right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, because I know the police, when they're looking for a suspect, they kind of put together a profile of somebody who, just kind of based on their habits as displayed in whatever crime they did, right?
Yes. And, I mean, it's a good tool. I don't like when, when people will come to me and ask, well, what do you see? What do you see for, am I going to meet so-and-so? But they will, but I always try to avoid that and say, well, your emotions are keeping you from meeting so-and-so because maybe the headline has islands in it, circles.
Oh.
And so they're fantasizing. They might be lazy. They might not be getting out meeting people.
Oh, right.
It's so fascinating.
So many variables.
Yes.
So many variables. And I think what you were talking about, too, is having someone test you, too. I hate that.
Oh, yeah. In the beginning, I did too. But now it's almost like I want the ones that don't believe me to come and let's take a go at it.
Let's just talk for a minute.
And what ends up happening is I mean, my goal is not to make people cry, but I do make the men cry, which is good because they bottle it up and they're so sensitive and they're so beautiful. And then maybe people never really told them, you're so good, you're this, because a lot of times they get the dirty end of the stick.
Right. I totally agree. Right.
And
so many expectations around men and manhood and masculinity.
And this kind of helps them to be who they are. And I don't know.
I love that. It helps people be who they are. Well, I do. A little self-knowledge goes a long way. That's what the whole play of King Lear is about.
Yes.
And, did he ever but slenderly know himself? I mean, that's what got him in trouble.
I love that.
So just having that self-knowledge is huge.
Well, this is what I've noticed. Just certain times of the year, if people are worried about taxes or, you could be worried about anything on a given day, but people will tend to hold their hands in a certain position when they're going through things.
Really?
And it's fascinating. Like, I always use George Clooney as an example because
I love
everyone loves him.
Right? And people know him or feel like they know him, right?
Well, when he waves, the index finger has to do with your self-esteem. And every finger has an energy of what it means,
Right.
So if your index finger is quite spread out and then the other fingers are away, it's look at me, please. I'm the center of attention and you are not. And I'm not saying that he really thinks that way, but he's very charismatic.
Yeah.
And
he's probably very aware of this, right?
And I've seen this with people who are artists or who are teachers. A lot of times that finger is a little bit away from the others.
Interesting.
Because that's the finger of leadership and ambition.
Wow.
So if you don't have a lot of ambition and you would like to create more, I just teach an exercise to kind of do the George Clooney.
Kind of like the Dr. Spock wave, sort of.
Yes, yeah. And women, for some reason, I don't know why it's more prominent with women, but the pinky finger has to do with communication.
Okay.
And it's named after the planet Mercury. So it's language. And it's also has to do with your hormones and with relationships. So if it's separate from the other fingers, those people, we don't like to be told what to do, to be given deadlines. Most people don't. But I see this with, probably the reason I see it with women more is because that is a sign of somebody who can work very well on their own. Like get the job done just by myself. Like, you kids go outside while I cook.
Right.
Or let the team have the meeting. I'm just going to make it happen.
Right.
I'm that person. I don't want to have a meeting for the meeting.
Right, exactly.
I mean, and then of course, this finger is related to fear. And it's your back. And it's Saturn.
Like backbone?
The spine, yes. Which is so funny. Well, it's not funny.
And if you're listening rather than watching, that's the flip-off finger. So
that's
the
right.
curse finger.
Right. Well, it's fascinating because the ruler of that finger is Saturn. And Saturn is about structure, law and order, religion, politics. So just for instance, and if it's the spine, if somebody cuts you off and then you feel like, you could have hurt me, or you feel unsafe, we flip. Right. We don't flip off our pinky finger that says, did you hear me? Or did you see?
Hey, heck with you, buddy.
Yeah. And the index fingers, did you see me?
Oh,
But we do, you scared me. You made my back kind of, you made
got
me.
my back up.
I got scared. So oftentimes I have people squeeze that finger as a form of meditation.
Oh, wow.
And just say, the universe supports me and I'm safe.
I love that. Do you know Jin Shin Jitsu?
That's part of this.
Right. I was going to say it sounds like there's some overlap.
I feel like there's so many overlaps with everything, and that the big creator really and truly, it's so simple. Do what you love. If it's not hurting anyone, what brings you your greatest joy, and find your imagination. The imagination will create the reality.
Absolutely.
And I've noticed that a lot of people, if the fingers are curved, they have a hard time with imagining.
Really?
I mean, they can imagine, but it's usually the worst case scenarios.
Oh, right.
And if we create through our imagination, they're just going to create more and more of that.
Oh my.
And baby steps.
Well, that's a life path just as valid as any other. That's what I always say, is that, this is what they came to explore and what they came to learn.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And before I forget, the ring finger is related to the heart. Right. And it's considered masculine. It's
really?
Well, if it's longer than your index finger, it tells you have. Usually, I do it like looking at the palm. Mm-hmm. But yours is balanced, so you have a natural balance of masculine and feminine. Your index finger is feminine. Mm-hmm. But if your ring finger is like really longer, they like an audience. They're on the stage. They're charismatic.
Interesting.
It's pretty fun stuff.
That is really fun.
And I see that. And you have to be careful, though, with the ring finger, because if they have a lot of vertical lines under it, yes, they're naturally charismatic. They're naturally successful. They're naturally lucky. But sometimes they can be kind of, we can all be into ourselves.
Narcissistic, perhaps.
A little. There's or they love quality. They just need an audience. They need people to validate them. And in fact, I have some vertical lines under here, but I have been published before, and I as an artist so I have this creative need. But I listened to a podcast from a palm reader, and she says, "This is for you folks who have that those strong vertical lines under the ring finger." And so I opened it up, and it was just clapping.
Oh, I love it.
It's not that we really need the clapping, but it just feels so good.
It feels so good, right? Just to be validated, so if we don't know our own self-worth, that is a way to have our self-worth shown us.
As an artist or a writer, oftentimes just having that compliment, oh, that's really neat, was it felt like payment.
Yes.
So, that's how I can sugarcoat it.
I feel sometimes I need to hold a sign that says, "We'll work for compliments."
Yes. Well, and also, that is the finger of the sportsman.
Oh.
And people who have a lot of vertical lines there, they love sports. Ooh. And you kick that, whatever, what is it, the field goal or what, you make that great shot or that swoosh in that basket. That's nothing better than to hear the crowd go, "Oh." Yeah. For the team, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
I can imagine. You have a very fun job. Hi, this is Christy. I just want to say that we here at Radiate Wellness hope you are enjoying this podcast. It's free to you, and we hope that you find it informative and inspirational. Heck, even fun. We have just 3 small asks of you to help us radiate growth. First, please hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. That way, you'll receive a notification every time that we have a new podcast episode out. Next, please give us a thumbs up, a like, or a 5-star review. If you're feeling inspired, a positive review wouldn't hurt. These 2 small things will help others find us when they're searching for great podcasts.
Finally, please tell your friends about the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Better yet, show them how to find us and how to subscribe. If everyone did that, we would double our audience. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
Sometimes, it is fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of crying involved.
Sure.
And a lot of deep work. But it goes round circle. It starts out fun, then it gets very sad, and then it gets fun again. And
Well, you deal with everybody's favorite topic, which is themselves.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone wants to know about themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And you talked about you started out in handwriting analysis, and it looks like you're starting to come back to it.
I am. Which is funny because the real reason I started to come back to it is because they stopped teaching that in school, cursive.
Right.
And I know that scientists have said that when you're nervous or kids need to learn how to ride a bike, or learn to read, have them make ovals, lots of ovals or ovals in the air. It actually helps the brain.
Really?
Yes, it's very important. So if we lose that, I just think it would be it would be awful.
I agree. I know. We're all moving toward texting and typing and all of this and away from, because the writing is self-expression, isn't it?
Well, and a lot of times to be able to manifest a little bit better things of your dreams, there's such magic in the letter. And it's such magic of writing it down. Or before bed, I've had clients, for instance, their headline, if it's cut or if it's just very damaged, they have trouble sleeping.
Oh.
And so I will say you need to get a pen and a paper and write all your thoughts, write, because what you're doing is you're releasing energy. And then they're able to sleep better.
Better. Right.
And so
I don't doubt that at all.
I think the lines, I just was told that in a dream years ago. It says, pay attention to the lines. Teach people about the lines. So I thought, what does that mean? But palmistry and handwriting maybe.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Well, when I taught college, I would teach people, it's like make notes. Copy things from your book. Make notes while you're reading, because it goes from your brain to your hand and from your hand back to your brain. It just increases that pathway. And I think there is something to that.
I think so too. And you know what I found out? That for one thing, I look at both of their hands. And if one is completely different than the other, oftentimes anyway, I can see that they went through a lot of trauma. Sure. And so they tend to have one hemisphere of the brain is more active. And so these neuroscientists have said, if you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand, it can help balance both sides. And I found that to be like unbelievable. Or getting dressed. If you put only your left leg in all the time, pay attention to what pant leg you put on, and then change it up. Right. Kind of change it, for a week. Start. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Or even like the way let me see. Different, of course, because you have that straightness to your emotions and to your mind. So, if I'm assuming you're right-handed. Is that right? Okay. I am right-handed, but my right thumb goes over the left thumb.
See, that feels weird.
I know. Yours feels weird to me. So that tells me that I have probably just one head talking to me. Christy has maybe two brains saying,
oh my
God.
Do
this. No, do this. I mean, mine is loud enough, but yours is really loud.
Oh my goodness. I need to tell it to shut up sometimes.
Yes. And I've seen this.
Oh my God.
I've seen this.
That is so funny.
So many people that I personally know as good friends and mates and kids.
Right.
It's just, you will notice the ones that you're more compatible with, you do your thumb the same way.
Isn't that interesting?
And it's really fun, but...
You're giving me all kinds of great ideas. Oh, that's interesting. Well, you know Donna Eden, the Donna Eden energy medicine, and there's the Wayne Cook posture.
I don't know. I know Donna Eden, but I don't know that.
So the Wayne Cook posture is just one of the many techniques of Donna Eden energy medicine to get the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of the brain talking to each other. And you start that off with saying, okay, well, now which thumb is over? That's the side you do.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
The same thing.
Yeah. See, it's all overlapping. It's all relating. Isn't that fascinating?
I think it's so neat. I would love for this to be taught in schools a little bit better.
Yes.
And there's a technique. I don't know who taught me. I don't remember, but you can do this.
What does that do?
It just for me. Well, I think it's qigong. I'm not sure.
Oh, that
but
could be.
It helps you to like. If you're overthinking, and you're worried a lot, this really helps balance.
Okay, now, when we're talking about do this, what we're talking about is you take the
forgot that.
the open hand, and with the opposite hand, you make a fist and thump it.
You just hit, yes. And
so
what that is going
hand.
to do, that actually builds internal chi. And so you have this energy of like, for instance, I'll put it as an example. When I was driving a pretty long distance in the dark to go to a party to read for these people, I didn't know exactly where I was going. I didn't have GPS, and I remembered that. So I started hitting the steering wheel.
Right.
And it brings energy. Somehow it is supposed to work with your internal chi.
Sure,
And it calms the nervous system. And because all of your organs are in the palm of the hand.
True.
And
just like on the feet.
Exactly, yes.
Right, it's reflexology.
Yeah.
So just tapping one hand with the opposite fist.
Yeah. In fact, I had seen a little tiny guy, and he was probably in his 80s, but he was really frail, and he was a qigong master, and they hit hard objects really hard so that they would build their internal chi.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And I thought, I mean, there are extremes, but
right. You don't want to break your hand or anything like that.
No, and I don't know if they do, but I mean, they build it up to the point where they can hit. Well, you've seen them karate chop, and then it goes through, but you're building that internal chi.
Right.
That life force energy that's all healing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
See, this is really fun stuff. This is why I wanted to talk to you, Sandy. This is why I wanted to bring you in and talk to you, because I think this is so fascinating. And when we think about our hands and we look at our hands and we're like, okay, everybody's got lines. Everybody has fingers. Most people. I guess there are a few exceptions, but well, you know what? That reminds me of a question.
Okay.
What if somebody is missing a hand, missing a finger?
Well,
maybe they were born without it.
There is a man, and I don't know his name. He's a wonderful palmist. But he talks about that it doesn't mean, if it's cut, it doesn't mean that they can't develop, but it just means that you are not able to read the energy of how they're going to be in the world. Gotcha. And that helped me a lot. But you have a really good question, because I know of a man that he cut his ring finger, and that has to do with your friends, your family, you're being able to process the things of your heart and share them with the world.
Oh, wow.
And it was an accident, but ever since he cut it really hard, he kind of went more within.
Interesting.
And almost like closed himself off. And but I just, you observe these things on people, or the ouchies, if somebody has...
my daughter sliced her finger open with a roller skating accident.
Which one?
The ring finger, left hand, ring finger. She grabbed onto a chain link fence, roller skating, and then fell and...
Oh, gosh.
I know.
Well, and a lot of times an emotional pain is always, I think it's always attached prior to when you get cut.
Yeah.
And like the ring finger... was she grounded recently? Did you?
No, this was a few years ago that she sliced it open.
Because that's the finger of her artistic side, her need to express what's going on. So maybe she was very vulnerable at that time, and I'm assuming if she's right-handed, and it was her left hand.
Yes.
So she was processing things emotionally on the inside, and she didn't really want to share.
Well, she's a Scorpio.
Oh, no wonder. Yeah.
Kind of secretive.
I'm Scorpio Libra. And,
Okay, well, sometimes we don't want to share.
The Scorpio, they are diggers. We're diggers, and so maybe she's like observing, and then she's figuring it out. Maybe she had problems with her friends, and she didn't want to talk to you about it.
That's quite possible.
There's so many scenarios, but
exactly.
It's just you just have to kind of just learn to just observe.
Right.
Don't judge right away, because I've done that my beginning years. And it's not always exactly the way it is in the book, but it's it's kind of like the form, but we are formless. I mean, we really are. We're just out there. But that will help. Like, I noticed that you have a ring on your the flip-off finger, like you called it.
Flip-off finger. Yeah, I do.
And a lot of self-made, independent, strong women will tend to wear a ring on that finger more so than the others. And it's,
I feel like as soon as I started buying and having rings for myself and wanting to wear them, before ever being in serious relationships or anything, I always like to wear a ring on that finger.
That's amazing. Well, and I've seen this not only in just single women, but I've seen this in married women. And if all of a sudden they'll start, they haven't worn one there before, and then they start to wear it, there is an energy behind it that they're afraid that their husband is either losing his job, or he's not going to be able to support her, or there's something kind of different in the relationship.
Right.
And so oftentimes I have her or him do a vision board and create a different plan.
Love it.
And I tried wearing one there. I couldn't do it.
You said it felt weird.
It felt so weird. I couldn't do it. Just
right. Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Yeah. And even the index finger is a fun read, because when women wear, this is self-esteem finger. So what is it's called armoring up. That's what I named it. But oftentimes they have that, a lot of, ego, very ego, or they need more ego. So that's why you see a lot of teenage girls wearing
index finger rings. Yeah. Just trying to find their self-expression.
Yeah, yes. Well, and if you see one on an older woman, oftentimes they're in their own business. And they are head, they're top. But they're still just as kind. They're not all ego, but they have to be strong to be the boss.
Right. You got to be the boss, applesauce.
And
what about thumb rings? I see people with that sometimes.
Yeah, thumb rings, because you're armoring up on the logic. It's so fascinating about that.
Interesting.
They tend to not to like the rules. They're a lot of times sounds so stereotypical, but I'm trying not to say it. But they're tough. They have more tattoos. They have their own rules.
Right.
Their own rules. They're very creative people.
Right.
A lot of times they're into marketing. They're into fashion. So they wear, like, their leather would have like real cool studs or something, they're different. They're their own drum. Their own drummer. They beat at their own drum.
Right. You can tell when you see somebody who's got, thumb rings and just rings on different fingers. There's kind of a certain mystique about many of them.
Yeah. What I found, though, and not all of the women, but a lot of people who wear a thumb ring, oftentimes they're armoring up their logic, so they feel this sense of disempowerment where they can't make a decision, or not always, but sometimes for me, it's a wake-up call to possible domestic abuse.
Oh, my.
Yeah, or that they just need a way out and they don't know if they would have enough money or where they would go.
Right. That makes a lot of sense, seeing the people I've seen who wear
Yeah.
thumb rings. That makes a lot of sense.
And not all of them are like that. And that's why
Right.
you have to look at the headline, we didn't talk about the lifeline even.
Exactly. That's what we tend to think of with palmistry.
Well, and that's what so many people, in fact, this is one of the reasons I got into palmistry more, is because people will say, how long do I have to live? And my mother used to tell me all the time, I don't think I'm going to live old because I have a short lifeline. She's 80, will be 84, I think. I can't remember. 83, 84. But a shorter lifeline just means that, the lifeline is related to the physical body.
Okay.
So she doesn't drive anymore. She would get more nervous. Plus, she's also from another country.
She's from Mexico.
Yeah. And so she met my dad when she was 17, and she left her country, learned a different language. And I see that the really short lifelines come with people who are adopted. Not all adoptees will have that, but they have this longing for another country.
Oh, wow.
And like my lifeline.
And which line is the lifeline?
Lifeline is the one that, gosh, it starts under the index finger and then it curves around in a circle around the thumb. Like right here.
Sure. Right. So it goes from the L of your thumb.
Right.
Right. Middle of the L of your thumb, and then goes around down to the wrist.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And I see because it's the physical body, if it's clean and clear and often deep, they like to feel their body. They like to have fun. They like to go on cruises. They like to swim. They're real cautious with their family, their unit. But my lifeline is real delicate. You can hardly see it.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm able to go out of body, and to almost channel. But my lifeline extends way out towards the area of the imagination, and that's probably because my first 4 years of life, I lived in Mexico, and I have the heart of a Hispanic woman, but I'm in Kansas, and I don't. I'm on the cusp of everything.
Right, yeah, the outside of everything.
Yeah. And so,
interesting.
And yours is somewhat light too, and so you're able to do hypnosis.
Yeah.
And I want to say about Christy is that she has a really strong vertical line that goes it touches her lifeline, it goes straight to the pinky, which means she's very good at communicating. So she's cool as a cucumber with video.
It's smoke and mirrors, darling.
But straighter the better. And
that's what you want.
Oftentimes, it used to be called that they were a hypochondriac. Is that the right word? But it means health. They're very health conscious, and so the work that you do, you like to help. Well, what is your wellness? I mean, it's all
radiate wellness.
Yes, there you go.
We want to radiate wellness.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you're able to say clearly speak so that people can hear you when it's straight. The straighter, the better.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So I see that as very positive. And I like, your lifeline, if the lifeline extends outward, like mine and Christy's, it's going to be harder for you and I to, we go home, we're still thinking about how could we improve.
Yes.
Kind of like the perfectionist.
Yes.
And the person that's always wanting to serve, because remember, that's related to the physical body. And so if it's weak, you're using your mind, you're thinking more, you're writing. Not that the people that have a dark one don't think, but they're able to kind of turn it off, maybe go in the yard with the neighbors, have a beer, watch TV, where I would tend to maybe get a new book or learn about it.
Absolutely. Read an article, pick up a magazine. Yes.
And the lighter it is, or if it's, especially anybody who's listening, if it's broken, it has to do with the lungs and the pulmonary, the digestion.
Oh, okay.
And so that's probably why, yes, it could be death sometimes. So because we have to be aware of our physical body.
We do. That's what carries our consciousness around.
Yes. I mean, we are mind, body, spirit.
Yes.
And that's
absolutely.
And so I always recommend, all my clients know this, if there's a weak lifeline, they say you have to have sweet potatoes or, because it helps with the lungs, or limes. Limes. Or stewed pears help the digestion, but make sure the digestion is
good. Oh, yeah, that is key to life, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Right. Now, not to switch gears too drastically, but you've told me before, and before we started recording, we talked about how our lines can change over time. Yes. So just because we've got these wonderful lines in our hands, it's not locked in.
Not at all. In fact, the lines, well, they'll change on the dominant hand. That's the personality.
Okay.
But
right.
I've seen with young people. Well, for one thing, I'll have to say, I will go to parties, and yes, I'm like, oh, the palm reader is here, and I'm here for the 16-year-olds, and they love it,
the
and I
entertainment.
love it. But I look at the hand, and there's nothing to read because they don't really have life experience yet.
Right, they haven't lived yet.
And a lot of times on the non-dominant hand, a mother can look at her child, and that is, that's what we're picking up from our parents.
Oh,
but
okay.
When clients come to me throughout the years, and if they keep their handprint, you can see changes, and you can see like lines forming. You want to see vertical.
Okay, so you want
vertical.
To see, okay,
because it's from the heart, the energy of the heart, and it goes out and then through the fingers, like gift to God. Like, how can I serve? That's how I see it.
That's
and then
beautiful.
A block would be a horizontal cut or an island somewhere, and that would just show me that those are periods in their life when they're under crisis.
Oh my goodness.
And I have one example of a really nice, beautiful woman that I know that she's a force. I don't know why. I always tease her, why do you come to me? I should be taking classes from you. But she's so forceful. But one year she had, how was it? She was beginning to get a really strong destiny line. So it was time for her to plant her roots, get a house. And then the next year, that line broke. She ended up giving her house, selling her house, and going back to an apartment. So
interesting.
It's not always set in stone.
Right. Right.
I mean, we change our moods. We change all the time.
We do, don't we?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And our hand can morph along with that then.
It's wonderful.
That is interesting.
I have a story, and I can't remember all the details, but it was a country, and I think that they were somewhere in Uganda, I think. I'm not sure. But there was a woman that was having an affair with the man, and then anyway, she gets pregnant. And so they wanted to know who was the father. I have this on my Mystic Afternoon site. I'll have to share it with you.
Nice. Okay.
And he would not take the test. And so the palmist, the elders came, and they looked at the hand of the baby, and they looked at the hand of the father in question, and the lines were identical because his brain, his thoughts were so connected to Dad. So these elders, the women, said, this is the legal father. And then they made him it was a fascinating story.
That's so interesting.
They made him take a DNA test, whatever.
Paternity test.
And he was proven to be the dad.
That is,
and I thought,
wow.
And
right.
I often wonder, if you go to India, you're not allowed to read the hand of a child until they're 13 or over.
Interesting.
But because there's so much of the parents that are still in that child's hand, the upbringing. But a lot of times I can tell their inclination, and I'll say, do you want them to be like this? Because the parents can guide them like a tree.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what I mean.
Right. Well, my daughter is adopted. And so I always wonder how that would play out in a child who is adopted. You know,
Yeah.
right? So
I don't even know how to answer that because you are her caretaker.
yes, and have been since she was born.
And so she would be attached to your brain. What is it? The wirings.
Poor thing.
Those that fire together wire together.
Right.
And that's why you have to be careful with who you hang around with, because eventually we wire together. So
right.
She's probably wired to you, Christy.
I see so much of me in her.
Of course.
Right? So it's just that type of thing fascinates me. With astrology, with palmistry, it's just interesting. What is in our destiny, and what do we change in that? You know, it's fascinating. What you do is so fun.
Thank you. It is fun. And this is what I like about it. What I do is teachable.
Right.
It is teachable. It does take work, and you have to really study.
Right.
But what I recommend to people is study a little bit like I did, and just start reading hands and read your friends, and just like look at the differences in the lines, like how you and I did.
Right, exactly. It's like, oh, your line is like this, my line is like that.
I mean, it's fascinating, and there are no mistakes. No mistakes.
Right.
It's just we are here to play, and we're here to imagine, and we're here just to have fun. Last rules.
Exactly. Okay. We're starting to kind of not run out of time because there's no time in a podcast, but, we're starting to get kind of lengthy here. But I do want to talk about something fun. I know you and your daughter Hannah had seen a leprechaun.
Two of them.
To the Shawnee Mission Park. I tell you, you're a magical person, Sandy. You've had some magical experiences.
It was beautiful.
Can you maybe tell us about that? That was so cool. That is always going to be my biggest memory of you. You and Hannah saw leprechauns.
Well, it was so. It's deep. It goes beyond what you can imagine. I am writing a book about it.
You are.
It's just going to be a very little our mystical journey. We went on a mystical journey. It was all over the news. We were the ones that were lost at Shawnee Mission Park.
Oh my goodness!
But what really happened was that I had gotten that massage. It was a massage that it breaks down the deep tissue massage.
Right.
I can't think of the name of it, but it's painful and it's tough.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to walk for 3 days. You're not supposed to you can walk, but not physical activity.
Really? Wow.
And I had been upset because I didn't get to go on a mystical journey that we were supposed to go on. And I said, I don't need to pay $2,000 to go on a mystical journey when I can go on my own.
Right.
And so we went on a walk, not ever realizing that we were going to spend the night having a mystical journey.
Being lost in a park.
And what happened was everyone said we were lost.
Wow.
But after I had that massage, and it was deep, I had a bruise on my back this big.
Oh my gosh.
I started to freeze up, and I couldn't walk. And it started to get dark. And there was a house on the hill. And Hannah says, let's go over there and ask if we can use the phone. And I says, oh no, I've got this. We know the way out. But the odd thing was we were told, I had my hand on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to sound weird to other people, but it's not weird in my world. I heard a woman's voice said, leave it. So we left the phone in the car. It was a mystical journey.
Right.
And we were walking, and we got further and further into Shawnee Mission Park. And I got the further into the park, the darker it became. And anyway, long story short, we spent the night out there all night. And we started embracing it as the beauty that it was.
Right. It's a beautiful park.
It was so, in the mystical part, because it was a mystical journey that we created and started. And so we were meditating on a rock, and we were huddling. She was cold. And I said, let's just love the land, because they had killed all those deer. I don't know if you know about that.
Oh, I remember something.
They had to, I don't know the details, but there were so many deer in the woods, and so they went ahead and had them all shot, a lot of them shot, and people were coming to get the meat. But I had also heard that there were buckets of blood everywhere. So I said, it's obvious we're going to spend the night. Let's just pray for the land, pray for the animals. And then we started seeing things, and that's when the leprechaun was another story. But we did see I saw this small white creature, and it looked like a child, and I didn't say anything, and then my daughter says, do you see that? And I said, describe it, and I'll just, but we saw the same thing.
Oh my goodness.
I had seen, there's a saying the Native Americans say, and I'm part Cherokee, when we're in trouble, all of our ancestors come to help, living, deceased, and future that aren't born. My daughter was walking in front of me, and I don't know, she was the leader, and I was just following. And she turned to look at me, and her face morphed, and she became my mother. My mother's alive.
Right.
And so it was beautiful. It was we saw so many spirits. Right. And we actually did see a little tiny, looked like a little tiny miniature pony. That they were all white.
Oh my goodness.
And a lot of my friends know I don't drink. This is why I don't nothing. I can't.
No, right.
But it was beautiful. But the beauty of that whole thing is, I said, I was meditating, and we had no moon, and you could see all the fireflies. There were thousands. That's beautiful. Amazing. But if you looked at them, you couldn't see the path because you were blind. And so we had to collect our eyesight and just go. The best way through darkness is in darkness, is what I've learned. And to just go through the darkness so you could see clearer. Don't try to escape it. I hope that makes sense.
Don't try to fight it.
Yeah, just let it be, because I could not see with the fireflies. It was the light was so bright. But I felt my husband. I said, oh my gosh, we couldn't see the moon, remember? We were stopped for a pause. I says, your dad just woke up to pee. And I said, mentally scream at him that we're okay, we're okay. And he's very intuitive also. And he says he saw that the car was gone and we were gone, and he panicked. It was 2:30 in the morning, and he didn't know what to think. And so we trained our kids, don't ever go into panic mode, go into God's mode first. Love the imagination. So he sat on the couch and he meditated, and he connected with us, and he heard us say, we're good, I'm safe. And he went back to bed. And then his rational mind took over, and he could hear me saying, we were in the lake and we were drowning, and you didn't even come looking for us, and blah, blah, blah. So he gets up, and he goes to search for us, and he's real scared he saw a buck. He's very scared of big animals.
Oh, sure.
So he ends up calling the police, and the police kept him as a suspect, thinking that maybe he killed us. I mean, there was so many scenarios, but finally we got out, because I says, see, this is why you connect to God's source universe. Mm-hmm. I says, I cannot stand up, and I kept picking up little sticks, and they would break, nothing. Well, when I got angry, I says, I need a stick now. And I picked it up, and it was solid. And I went, oh. But we were led out to our place where we were parked. I knew exactly. We went right to the park. I just had to limp to the car.
And the stick was for walking. It was and supporting.
Yeah, but the most beautiful thing of the whole story, because we had prayed for the deer, the healing of the woods. One deer came out to us and looked, and another deer came out. There were 3 altogether, and they walked us out the path, and they did leapfrog, single file.
Yes.
They were taking turns being the leader.
Oh, my.
And we just stood there looking at each other, and Hannah and I did namaste to the deer, and they just looked at us as, if you've ever seen the movie Avatar.
Oh, yes.
It was a total Avatar moment.
I love it.
And it was almost like
Yes.
This knowing that we've got, it was beautiful.
And you're writing a book about this.
Yes.
This is wonderful.
Now that I've told you the book.
Right? Okay, all we have to do is read it now. So, you've got a blog, you've got a website.
Yes and no. I have a
Yes and
Facebook page called Mystic Afternoons.
Okay, so you're on Facebook as Mystic Afternoons.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Hannah has a website, but since the baby, and the website is a little. It's you're better off on Mystic Afternoons for me.
Sure. So if anybody wants to connect with you, maybe schedule an appointment. You do see people individually?
Yes,
Yes. So if anybody would like to schedule an appointment. And a question I did have is, and that I think you answered, if you can do this online. If you can do this, I see you've got these printouts of hands.
I have done it online.
Mm-hmm.
If they would ink their own hand,
Okay.
it really brings out the lines.
So like to press your hand onto an ink pad?
Well, yes. Or what I do is I have printer's ink,
sure.
like art ink
Right.
from Michael's or a Hobby Lobby,
Mm-hmm.
and just have them ink
Sure.
over their hand with the brayer or however they can feel like, just enough where the palm gets enough ink.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people will like to put the hand down on the paper, but I prefer the hand is up and then the paper is on top of it, and then I push in.
Oh, I see.
And so you could really get that print.
Yeah.
And
So if they want to do that and connect with you, they can connect with you on Facebook, Mystic Afternoons.
yes.
And even hire you for parties and events.
Yes.
That would be fun.
It is fun. It's fun to get to know your friends that way.
I'll bet. Maybe some things that you didn't bank on knowing. So, Sandy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome.
This was so much fun and so interesting. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Love you, honey.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.